Hi, GCC EXS 132 students. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about Chapter 16, Exercise Prescriptions for Health and Fitness. Please note that Chapter 16 does focus on exercise prescription, and then we will also have another section or another module where we will discuss specific case studies and how you would actually design an exercise program for an individual that relates specifically to cardiovascular training. So this is just kind of going to give you a little bit of a brief overview of exercise prescription, and then we will dive deeper into the case studies and do some examples together in another screencast. A couple main key concepts in Chapter 16 that you're going to want to focus on are the difference between physical activity and exercise. So physical activity is anything that you may be doing that is using basically your muscles. So examples could be I went out for a little walk, I'm playing with my 2-year-old child, I'm standing up washing the dishes, right? Those are all kind of physical activity-based things. And the difference between physical activity and exercise is planned. It's a planned activity, and the goal is really to improve fitness. So if I'm going out for an intentional walk to improve or maintain my fitness, that would be considered exercise. If I'm just going out for a walk in the park and looking at the flowers, that's probably just physical activity, right? So exercise is something that is specific. It's planned with the goal in mind to improve or maintain your fitness level, okay? Next key concept in Chapter 16 is going to be the FIT VPP principle. Now, this is ACSM guidelines regarding our frequency, intensity, time, type, volume, pattern, and progression of exercise. I'm going to talk about this here because I want you to have a little bit of a basis before we go back into our case studies. Now, you all got a copy of this when we were in class. I believe it was the second week when we did that review session. So you should all have a copy of this. It is also posted in Canvas for you. I know it might be kind of hard to read in the screen. But F stands for frequency. That's going to be the number of days a week we want an individual to exercise. So ideally, we want most people exercising at least 5 days a week or more of moderate exercise. And remember, we define moderate exercise as a MET level between anything that is going to be a 3 MET and up to a 6 MET. So 3 to 5.9 or 6 MET would be moderate. Anything that is above a 6 MET is going to be considered vigorous activity. So we want someone exercising at least 5 days a week of moderate exercise or 3 days a week of vigorous or a combination of the two. Okay. Our intensity is going to be a moderate or vigorous, which we just said that would be according to MET level. And remember that individuals who are extremely deconditioned, those who are completely sedentary, don't really do much activity at all, something light to moderate is going to be okay. So a lot of clients that you're going to be working with, especially in the beginning, if they are very sedentary, they have a few risk factors, they haven't exercised at all, they're just really sedentary population, extremely obese, or even just obese in general and just highly deconditioned, you may start them out at a 3 MET level activity, and that may be difficult for them. So just remember that a lower intensity level for deconditioned people is okay to be using. Our next is going to be time. We want 30 to 60 minutes of moderate exercise or 20 to 60 minutes of vigorous exercise or a combination of the two. For individuals, again, who are sedentary, less than 20 minutes a day can be beneficial. Remember that any exercise session that is 10 minutes or more in length is beneficial. So if you have someone who's extremely deconditioned, or for example, right now, let's say you're working with a client and they don't have the ability to go to the gym because of COVID-19, all gyms are closed. So they are thinking, well, there goes my exercise routine. Nope, you can still do something. The idea would be an extremely sedentary or deconditioned individual. Maybe they're just getting up from their desk 10 minutes a day and going for a walk. We want them to do 10 minutes a day, and they could break their 30 minutes of exercise that they need up into 3 different 10-minute segments. So maybe they go for a 10-minute walk after breakfast, a 10-minute walk after lunch, and then a 10-minute walk after dinner. 3 10-minute sessions adding up to be that 30 minutes. Okay. Our type of activity that we want individuals using or doing is going to be regular, purposeful exercise that's going to involve all major muscle groups. It's continuous and rhythmic in nature. Think dynamic, using all those main muscle groups. So think things like walking, jogging, running, using the elliptical, doing a cardio kickbox class, doing a Tabata based class, doing Zumba right now, right? Anything that's going to get your heart rate up and keep it up for an extended period of time. Our volume here, we really want you to focus on the volume of exercise really is, we talk about MET minutes a little bit, but we want to increase step counts by about 2,000 a day. We want people exercising at least 7,000 steps a day to be beneficial. A lot of people have pedometers or wearable technology that they can use to track that right now. I know cell phones, a lot of cell phones even do that right now as well. But just making sure that the individuals are exercising, and we will target volume a little bit differently when we do case studies as well. So we'll give you another couple options on how to do that. Our pattern I just talked about, we want it to be performed if we can in one continuous session or in multiple sessions of at least 10 minutes a day to accumulate their desired duration. Okay. And then our progression, we use the 10% rule. So ideally, we want to progress an individual no more than 10% a week. For example, if someone was exercising, starting out and they were exercising 100 minutes in a week, the second week, they could exercise 110 minutes because we would add 10%. So 10% of 100 would be another 10 minutes. Let's use a 60-minute example. If someone's exercising 60 minutes a week, 10% of 60 is going to be 6 minutes. Therefore, on week 2, the individual could work out about 66 minutes that next week. And remember, you can round, give or take. So instead of saying 66 minutes, we may just say, okay, let's just round it up to 70 or around 70 minutes. Or we may say, let's just add 5 minutes and make it 65 minutes, right? But roughly that 10% rule is going to be ideal. We will get into how to specifically apply the FIT principle from ACSM to an individual and to case studies in our next lecture when we specifically talk about case studies in general. Okay, but make sure you understand the FIT principle, make sure you remember and memorize those guidelines, and if you have any questions, make sure you just shoot us an email. Okay, next big key concept in chapter 16 is the dose response curve for exercise. So here we have the percentage of maximal effect that will be achieved with exercise and the minutes of week the individual is exercising. Okay, on this green kind of tealish curve are insulin level or insulin sensitivity, which is going to be directly related to diabetes. And then BP is going to stand for blood pressure. On this blue line here, we have heart rate and VO2 max. And then this red line is going to indicate HDL. Remember, HDL is our healthy or our good cholesterol. It's one of our negative risk factors according to ACSM. It is the only negative risk factor according to ACSM. So HDL is our healthy blood pressure. So that's a good thing that we want to increase. Okay. So these individuals, this dose response relationship for exercise chart is displaying what happens with exercise if the individual is exercising roughly somewhere between 60 and 70% of their heart rate reserve or maximum capacity VO2 max. Okay, this chart is directly from your chapter 16 on Connect as well. So an individual who is exercising 90 minutes a week is going to have roughly in 80% of maximum effect that exercise could potentially have on both their insulin sensitivity and blood pressure. So let's kind of reverse and think about that in a different way. So if I have a client who has diabetes and blood pressure issues, which are probably majority of clients that you are going to deal with, if they exercise 90 minutes per week, we are going to be able to lower both their insulin sensitivity and their high blood pressure and get them into hopefully more reasonable ranges just by exercise alone. So they only need to perform 90 minutes of exercise, and we're going to have roughly between a 70 and 80% effect on those two variables. Okay, so the big takeaway here is that diabetes and blood pressure are easily changed with small amounts of exercise. So that individual just walking 3 days a week for 30 minutes at a time can have an impact, a fairly significant impact, on both their insulin sensitivity, so their diabetes, and their blood pressure. Okay? In order to get the maximum effect that exercise would ever have for those individuals, they're going to need to exercise probably closer to that 210 minutes a week. But just with 90 minutes of exercise, they're having a pretty good substantial effect on their diabetes and blood pressure. Okay. Next would be heart rate and VO2 max. Those are going to be the next two variables that are changed with exercise. At 90 minutes a week, we're roughly hitting maybe about a 50% maximum effect of exercise, of change that we would have with exercise. And then HDL, really not having a huge significant change on HDL until at least 210 minutes to get to that 50%. Okay, so something to think about is HDL is difficult to change. The only ways we change HDL or a healthy cholesterol are through at least 210 minutes of exercise per week and increasing those healthy fats in your diet. Okay, so when you deal with clients, think about, all right, my client has high blood pressure, my client has diabetes. I know that I can really have a significant effect on both of these by just getting them to exercise at least 90 minutes per week. Those are the real goals for the real people that you're going to be working with. Again, type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure are the most kind of significant things that you are going to see. So get those people exercising, because exercise can have a very significant impact on both insulin sensitivity, diabetes, and blood pressure. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about weight loss. How many minutes a week do you think someone needs to be exercising to have a significant effect on weight loss or decreasing their weight? Would that curve be over here less than 90 minutes, or is it going to be way over here greater than 210 minutes? It's going to be greater than 210 minutes. As we saw with our MET calculations and number of calories burned per exercise session, it takes a lot of exercise for an individual to burn a significant amount of calories, especially for individuals who are sedentary or individuals who are just starting out. Exercising at a 3 MET level is not going to burn nearly the same number of calories as when you get that individual in better shape and they can exercise at a 6 or 7 MET level, right? As we increase intensity of exercise, we're going to increase the number of calories burned per minute. So ideally, we want to not set weight loss goals for individuals until we know what their capacity is and a little bit later on. Okay. Last big key concept in here was really the dose response curve. Please make sure you look through the rest of the slides. There is a section about strength training and flexibility. Again, that's not what we focus on in this class. You're welcome to look through the slides, but you won't be tested on that information. Environmental concerns was also a big one. We've talked about this a couple times. Just make sure individuals who are exercising in heat or humidity, they're going to have to decrease the duration and intensity of exercise. If you have any questions, let us know.